Today's topic is spiritual ethics. And last week we talked about some of the qualities that someone might start to try to possess to help them understand occult laws, occultism, how we relate to these occult laws within ourselves. And so we talked about some of the qualities, because when we start maybe acquiring some of these occult parts of ourselves, when we start understanding them, how are we going to use them? If we have inner sight, what's going to be the judge within us to decide how we use that? And that's a very important question. So today we're going to talk more deeply about what spiritual ethics entails and why it's important to try to live our lives by these ethics. So we can talk about what's the difference between spiritual ethics and the morals of today. So what would people think are some of the differences of what spiritual ethics are encompass and what the morals that we kind of practice today?
I mean, I think spiritual ethics are something we definitely don't think about all day. I think we think more about our more like temporal morals and morals that are adapted to our lives and experiences and things like that. I definitely think, our spiritual ethics, our higher manas is more important, but it's tough to stay present with that in mind, especially as we go about this world of late stage capitalism and everything. It's tough, but yeah, it's definitely something I can get more. I should be a bit more in touch with, but I think being present with it, like mindfulness with that, is really, really important. But
well, you touched on something that's key, is that one of the differences between spiritual ethics and the morals of today is that spiritual ethics are, for one, universal. So they apply to everyone in every race. They don't have differences between races, between cultures, and within time. Some of the morals of today, like you said, are like temporary. They change from the 50s to today to the future, what those morals are going to be, and from culture to culture. Also, some examples of the morals of today that I could bring up are like how, what's pretty important right now, how are we going to use AI? What are the moral compass of using AI? Well, that might hold true for a certain time period, but then that might change. People always adapt, or they try to kind of get around maybe certain things to benefit themselves, and so they morals are kind of developed that change. Same with like what books that we're going to use in schools. Some people think we should, ban some books and that we teach children, or change some of the history, because that will set up a better moral compass for our children. But that again changes from time to time, from city to city. Same with abortion. That's a pretty hot topic. And then the key thing of all of these is that, does it bring us together or no? It pretty much is very divisive, some of these morals of today. I can't really think of, some of these cases that I brought up, or examples that I brought up, that bring us together. They're pretty much, they separate us. Whereas spiritual ethics always brings us to together, and to realize that oneness and how we're connected. So that's some,
That's kind of a boneheaded question that I want to ask now until we get too deep, because it's not boneheaded, but so I'm asked a lot, and you see it asked of Theosophy a lot in general, is like, what is the practice? What do you guys practice? And I mean, I feel like this, I've always felt like this, but I was wondering if anybody had any thoughts or could explain more about, I kind of feel like the establishing and understanding one's spiritual ethics and then living by that. I think that is the practice. I mean, like basically, step one kind of practice of the Theosophy. It talks about doing good things and not letting people. So I think it seems like that's the practice. The first one is being able to exist in that realm of spiritual ethics. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
So what was your question?
Like,
I missed the question. I just.
so like, do you think that like that is the practice, or at least a practice of Theosophy, especially when people are like, well, what do you guys do?
Right.
Anders?
Yes. I think there's a saying used in spiritual practice, saying that as HPB has noticed, in saying that my mission is to help people to get a safe way through, and that is to help people to understand, as Kelly was defining, to really join at the spiritual level where we are one. We need to come up to the Bodhimana's level. We need to come up to that level, and if we are not true to motives and ethics and the what we say and mean is a true thing, we don't gather that. We don't get up to that level. That is very important as I see it.
Yeah, she was pretty straightforward a lot of the time, like that.
thank you, Anders, and we're going to touch upon more about that later, like why it is important to live these spiritual ethics in our everyday lives. I lost my train of thought. But yes, we're going to touch more upon the importance of that. But yeah, what you're saying, the oneness, I mean, really like what this whole talk is going to boil down to is, like what we are, one of our, one of the three fundamentals is universal brotherhood. And that's pretty much what spiritual ethics boils down to. And we're going to go through some more details of that. Does anyone else have a comment? No. Okay. So the first quote I like, this is from the William Q. Judge article's Synthesis of Occult Science, since we were talking about sort of, what is the ethics in occultism. So it says, the most profound thinker and the most correct reasoner might well afford to devote a lifetime to the apprehension of the philosophy of occultism, and other lifetimes to the mastering the scientific details, while at the same time his ethics and his religious life are made consistent with the principles of altruism and brotherhood of man. So that's, what I was pointing to, that altruism and brotherhood of man and woman and all is really at the basis of the spiritual ethics. So next, there's some, there are some virtues that we can talk about that make up spiritual ethics. Some more like detailed defining characteristics that would be like under the umbrella of spiritual ethics that we would practice, and by practicing these then gain a more what you were talking about, Anders, this higher understanding of discernment of what to do and what not to do. What's the best thing in every situation in daily life? How do we make that decision based on our spiritual ethics? And so, you know, one of the books, The Voice of the Silence, you know, brings these as keys to opening up and practicing these principles within ourselves to get to that point of living a spiritually ethical life. So we can go through. So the first, I think the first 5 are more sort of relates to us today, right now, you know, where we're at. The 6 and 7 are when we've practiced the first 5 and master the first 5, which is still a pretty daunting task. Yeah. So Donna, the key of charity and love immortal. So that again kind of points to universal brotherhood. And, you know, another, I guess, rule that we can say that's very similar is the golden rule, you know, do unto others. So we would want to have charity and love immortal for everyone and every being. That also includes like a charitable attitude towards when, you know, instead of a judgmental attitude, you know, so we might see like things that we don't, you know, agree with, or, you know, or think that maybe that they're, you know, not acting the way we think they should, but we then have to be charitable to a certain extent. That's where this discernment comes in, because the question arises like, well, when does it go too far? Like, when is someone acting in a certain way that's really harmful to society, to other people? And that's where we have to make the discernment that the first thing that we need to uphold is truth and justice. I mean, truth that leads to justice. So we have to kind of gain an understanding of what truth means in the spiritual realm. And that justice. And justice too. But as we go along to find, you know, justice, karma takes care of justice. And in, you know, one of the articles too, I think we might read it later. It talks about, they're asking about the masters, and, you know, the comments about the masters are that they don't punish. They have the insight to know that karma will be the justice. So when they see faults or wrongdoings of some of the students, they don't punish them. They know that karma, this is going to be taken care of by karma. And so they're charitable to the students' faults and wrongdoings. It gets tricky though, you know, in today's society, practically speaking, to know, you know, what to do and not to do. But as we go and we'll read further quotes, we'll see like why we need to practice this as much as possible. It's very important to set up future causes.
I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry again. I know, do we know or have anybody in here that has the, because these are, you know, old translations, the words in here. Do anybody have the the concise Buddhist, what she's getting at, because I mean, she's usually really close, but it's usually kind of an older Victorian spelling or something like that. Just wondering.
Or Dana or the,
I mean, for all of these, yeah, but it's not important to what we're doing. I was just wondering.
I don't. I don't know if anyone else online does.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, like just Google later.
Okay. So the next one, SHILA, the key of harmony in word and act, and the key that counterbalances the cause and the effect and leaves, again, no further room for karmic action. So what does that really mean? Harmony in word and act. So to me, that means there's a harmony in what we think, what we say, and how we act based on trying to act within the spiritually ethical realm, so that we're not, we're walking the walk, basically.
So it's saying like, essentially, if you're Buddha, everything you're doing is so balanced and right action without trying that karma is just
You're working with
straight along, completely balanced, no waves, no further room for karmic action. It's interesting.
You're working with karma. Yeah. Like, last week we were talking about work with nature, and she will open up and you'll see how this harmony works and how to work with it. The next one is Shanti, patient, sweet, that naught can ruffle. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I think we can all definitely practice that one.
That one sounds like the hardest.
Yeah. The next one is, they're all pretty, they're all challenging to us in these days and age. The next one, indifference to pleasure and pain, illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. So there again, truth alone perceived, void of what our personal likes or dislikes are. So our personal likes are always going to separate us. So we're working towards unity, and that's one of the major obstacles of the personality, and what we've learned growing up, and what we're accustomed to comfort wise. People want to be comfortable in many different ways.
Yeah, it's the illusion conquered.
Which is
paramitas, right?
we're going over the paramitas right now as like virtues towards spiritual ethics.
I didn't receive that email.
Oh, you didn't get it?
No, sir.
I'm sorry. Just watched the
Came yesterday, I think.
It would have come this morning.
Oh, this morning,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I was late.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, sorry.
We're not just straight reading it anyway.
This is I'm going through some of the paramitas that relate to like leading a spiritually ethical life. These are some of the qualities that we learn in Theosophy that we want to practice and put into everyday, our everyday actions, thoughts, actions, to lead a spiritually ethical life. Okay, so I'm going to skip over 6 and 7 because that's, for when we're, as I said, master these first 5. Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about, how justice and karma, and this next quote from the articles kind of says like, why, how our ethics relate to karma, and how how can we, if we practice this, how does it affect our karma? So it says a very important question is here presented. Can an individual affect his own karma? And if so, to what degree and in what manner? It has been said that karma is the continuance of the act. For any particular line of karma to exert itself, it is necessary that there should be the basis of the act engendering that karma in which it can inhere and operate. But action has many planes in which it can inhere. There is the physical plane, the body with its senses and organs, and then there's the intellectual plane, memory, which binds the impressions of the senses into a consecutive whole, and reason puts in orderly arrangement its storehouse of facts. Beyond the plane of intellect, there is a plane of emotion, the plane of preference for one object rather than another, the fourth principle of man. So there's like likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
These three, physical, intellectual, and emotional, deal entirely with the objects of sense perception and may be called the great battlefield of karma. So that's the Bhagavad Gita. There's also the plane of ethics, the plane of discrimination of the I thought to do this or I thought not to do that. This plane harmonizes the intellect and the emotions. All these are the planes of karma or action, what to do, what not to do. It is the mind as the basis of desire that initiates action on various planes, and it is only through the mind that the effects of rest and action can be received. So here, on this plane, we have to use our lower mind to access that plane of the spiritual, of ethics. And that's where we then just get the discrimination, the right discrimination of what to do and what not to do. Does that make sense to people? With the other planes of the plane of emotion, the plane of reasoning, like I was talking about, the morals of today, we use those faculties to kind of understand and adhere to the morals of today. But we need to go deeper and understand the spiritual, ethical aspects of ourselves, and then we, gain this discernment of what to do, what not to do in everyday life.
So what role does the body, organs, senses, what role does that part play in this?
So the body, organs, senses, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, that comes through our senses. Then with our nervous system too, and our mind, our lower mind, we make decisions on how we're going to react to that. So that's why they call it illusionary, because our senses can, and that sort of, the nervous system within us, people talk all the time about our fight or flight nervous system. So sometimes we hear things, say things, we make the decision on what that means, and we get stressed because when we go into that fight or flight mode of our nervous system, we don't react in a spiritually discerning manner. We just react. We don't actually, have the right discernment to know what to do if we're just reacting based on the outer senses and then what emotional aspect within ourselves that can create.
Sure. Honors?
Could we connect this to parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve parts of nerve system? I think is it the sympathetic that gets these ethics to work, and the other one not so much?
Right. Yeah. So there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So the I think you got to mix up the sympathetic is the fight or flight. The para is the rest and like more calm, rest, digest, heal.
Okay.
That's why in the, what is that, one book, I forget the name of the book, they say patriarchata. Patriarchata? They say cut the sensitive they say patriarchata. I think it pronounced well, patriarchata is don't cut or don't feel it with a sensitive, with the ear, no. They say cut, control. They say, one book say cut, another book say control the sensitive. This is the part of the meditation. We needed that one. Because like, I hope you understand well, because sometimes we hear something, but when in the mind, they go inside to the intellectual. It doesn't mean anything intellectual without spirit. And so that's why they say Maya, because in this plan, we're talking about Arupa and Rupa. So in this mind, it's all about Rupa, but we have to know about, for what reason is we hear something or we see something. Sometimes it's something more deeper than we see and hear.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that too. It's
And also they say many, what they say, karma, they say, but the action has many places in which it comes in there. This means karma can be in all our septenary planes, septenary plane, because we're talking about elemental. We have to control every elemental in our septenary, or the principle, right?
Right.
To go up. Sometimes they say about we are in the global D right now. Okay. So in this one, in our left, we have three. Yeah, three. The right also three, and one is in the middle, one is this. Right now, this one, we can say this one is Arupa, and on the right is Rupa. We need to pass all this one to go in this plan. I think so it's the global A. But this one is the very long trip. We can say this one is the direct trip. Because this global, they say, is from the impulse, but I don't know in English, it's called to jump. To jump. And also, Kabbalah, Hebraic Kabbalah, I think so, they call this is the balanza. Balanza is the negative and the positive. The main is in the middle right now. So we need to have it the balance right now. No go to the left, no go to the right. Keep in this one. That's why they say about the paramita. They say dhyana is samadhi. I think so. Samadhi. That is the order. We are here. We are in the global.
Exactly what she said though about the balance that the karma no longer affects.
This harmony and
yeah.
So that doesn't bring up any future karmic.
No,
it's very good. It's very good.
Well, one other, like, going again to what you said about the senses, one one actually form of like torture is to have someone in a room and having sounds of maybe someone else being like psychological torture, sounds of someone else being tortured in the room, and the person that's in the other room hearing this goes through all this like mental changes and emotional changes based on what they hear, which may, which they're just playing. I think, well, it wasn't torture, it was actually a psychological experiment. And to see what happens. And so this wasn't actually happening, but they heard it and then they thought,
Similar to that one famous study where they had the students thinking they were electrocuting people for giving wrong answers.
Yeah.
And the way some of them emotionally reacted, even though they believed in wholeheartedly in the authority that it was directing them. It'll take its toll.
So that's why, those are also illusory, and what the truth is, what we get to what the truth is, only going to be by using, going through this, purifying ourselves to have, go to our inner senses and beyond to like samadhi, going through this, like, through meditations, through our studies here, through our everyday practice, we slowly get glimpses of what the true thing is to do based on what we're talking about, this going along with karma.
And also, I think so, one another view is depend our tone, our vibration or our tone, because sometimes if we are right now, I think so, fa, we are on fa, right? I hopefully I explain myself. We are on fa, we have to be tone on fa, but sometimes, like we say, we hear something, it depends what kind of vibration we are. Because if we are in tone, we can hear that same thing. But in the different tone, we can hear different. Even if, I don't know if it happened, we are reading exactly the same book sometimes. But one person understands one thing, another person understands one thing, and the third person, they explain another
Well, it's
thing.
just like how different animals, there's different organisms that have completely different sense organs. And they'll experience sound as not sound at all, truly what it is, just vibration, just there's nothing really, just because they don't have the pickups for that. You know how an electric guitar, they have these pickups, they don't have the right pickups for, they don't have the same kind of pickups as us.
Yeah.
I mean, can we even begin to imagine what it's like to see 360 degrees with 300 eyes at all times?
Right.
It would drive us mad.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, we're kind of going along with the next quote is interesting because it's like reason why we also practice these spiritual ethics. And this is from another one from the articles, Willing to Judge articles. The necessity for recognizing the law, which I put in quotes, it wasn't in the original text, but meaning karma and reincarnation, from the standpoint of ethics, arises from the fact that until we are aware that such is the law, we will never begin to perform such acts and think such thoughts as will tend to bring about the required alterations in the astral light needed to start a new order of thoughts and influences. These new influences will not, of course, come to have full effect and sway on those who initiate them, but will operate on their descendants and will also prepare a new future age in which those very persons who set up the new current shall participate. Hence, it is not in any sense a barren, unrewarded thing, for we ourselves come back again in some other age to reap the fruit of the seed we have sown. The impulse must be set up, and we must be willing to wait for the result. The potter's wheel continues to revolve when the potter has withdrawn his foot And so the present revolving wheel will turn for a while until the impulse is spent. So
He's really great. That's a great example right there, the potter's wheel.
and we touched upon this when we were talking about elementals in the last couple of talks too, because by our, our thoughts, we influence those elementals. Those elementals become the skandhas for lifetimes and lifetimes. And in order to change that, that's one of the things.
Yeah, it's just like it's like these waves we're making in life. These little butterfly flaps and the wings and things that they're doing. That wheel is going to keep turning after we die, that we gave them momentum to, and it'll slowly stop. But that's still our karma. We did that,
Well, and you see that of generations of family,
Yeah.
our society, generations of families. You're taught this from your family that carries on to the next and the
Yeah.
next, until people make changes in that. And
It's interesting too to think about how it applies to orally transmitted like rituals and beliefs and things like that too, because you have to keep that wheel going. The next person has to start kicking it as soon as the other person leaves.
right.
But when I hear until the people change, I don't know what would they say. Why we ask to another people change? I have to do my job.
Mm.
My job doesn't matter if another person change or no. I have to start with myself. Even if another person doesn't do what they have to do, doesn't matter for me. I have to do my job. No matter what is around myself. That is the new future age. That's it, the new future age. To doing, and the Chinese people, they say, the marathon or 2-minute walk, we start with one step.
Mm.
We have to do in the first step. Doesn't matter around. One.
Well, to add to that, I was just gonna say that, on just a regular plane, I'll just say, starting from March 2020 with what occurred, okay, people think differently. And, but one of the things that, and I totally took a different position, but one of the things that I found is that what was going on in society around me was a window to myself, how I was responding or not responding to what was taking place. And it was a mirror to myself, and it was a window to see how society was acting and reacting.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these things that occur, I mean, everything is for the good, and so the universe is good. And so even if in the moment it seems bad, and there's paradigms that change. And paradigms change, just like medical paradigms change. I don't adhere to the modern day paradigm. So anyway, so going along with what you were saying, for me, I saw it was what was taking place around me was a mirror to myself, what was a part of me and how I was responding, and then, or not responding, and then a window into others individually and as a society as a whole.
Well, these are the tests that we get, the tests that we get to see if we're living by these spiritual ethics, if we're practicing them. Those difficult times test us to see if we're actually doing that.
And one's own reaction does not need to follow everybody else's reaction. I mean, and so that was a key thing with what was of recent taking place. Seeing how many were jumping into a ship and few were standing outside, observing and saying no.
In the book, and the page number 31, I will try to read, okay?
People were letting fear dominate themselves.
Yes.
Oh, still.
This student, okay.
What are you reading from?
From this one.
Conversations on occultism.
Other one, they say the law governing elemental. Okay. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, but I try my best.
You do well,
But do not mean that we should remain ignorant on science and devote ourselves only to ethics? Say, not at all. Not all you can, because conversing with shift, SIFT, all that the school had declaration as much more on your own account is possible. They say wonderful thing I can. But all the same time, teach, preach, preach, and practice a life based on the true understand brotherhood. This is the true way.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful one. I enter with this one. They say empathy. This is the true way.
It's good.
Teach, preach, and practice.
Yeah, that's really good. It might be a silly example, but I think a really good example that helps me kind of understand this hereditary karma, because it's kind of a touchy subject. But I read a book years ago, and they made a movie of it finally called The Iron Claw, and it was about this wrestling family, this really famous, happy wrestling family of all boys, and it seemed like they had the world in the palm of their hand, but they believed their family was cursed for a reason, and I mean it was great. I mean, all four brothers just died, and it's different things, but this family, just the horror that they went through when these boys were growing up, and the one surviving son, he makes it very clear he wanted to do everything completely different from how his parents did. He didn't want to raise anybody with all these expectations, and he wanted to be completely different. And I mean, he's still around. He's one of the only remaining members of the family, but he's got something like 8 kids and like 20 grandkids. And everybody is just doing so well and so thorough. It's almost this family karma, and it took one person to just completely reset it because it was just doomed for generations. And it's an interesting thing, and I wouldn't want to be the person responsible to judge which traditions need to be karmically sifted out, which ones do, but it's a beautiful example. It's a great book, and it was one of those things that just the tragedy has somehow resulted in just a really powerful new branch of this family.
Well, that's for all of us. All of us have our own family karmas, and we could use our family, not use our family, but understand our family karma and see how we can.
I don't know what my ancestors, I probably have a few clues of what my ancestors did to get us in this situation, my family lately, and things like that. It's just like, what did they do? It's having a rough year.
That's what the paragraph starts with karma / reincarnation, because I have to have a one object to feel the karma. That they call binomial. Yes, it has to be together.
Oh,
Karma could be alone.
Symbiotic.
Yeah, with nobody have it. Yeah. And that's why one is the law about karma. They give you the responsibility for our life.
Mm.
They didn't say responsibility for another life. They say for our life.
Mm.
So when we understand the law of karma, and also one of the masters say, don't worry about the effect. Worry about the causal, the cause of Don't take it to time. Don't lose your time. Think about the effect.
Mhm.
Take your time about what they cause that effect. So it's a different view of life when we understand a little. For me, it's a little bit understand. Don't worry about it. Go back. That's why they say one of the Greek philosophers. They say at night, look in your date what you did.
Oh, yeah.
What you did so you can change, because in that day you are excited. We're talking about our, how to say, about the sensor. So we are excited during the day. Sometimes we didn't see many things. So at night when we are peace in my life, we are peace on the day I finish. So I can say, okay, I can do it better that one. If I offend somebody, I have to be strong to say, I'm sorry what I did.
Yeah.
This is to be strong, not to be weak.
Reflection without action isn't really that useful.
Right. It's interesting you bring up the word responsibility, because I've heard this one really good definition about it, and it goes along with like an everyday, if we're practicing these spiritual ethics in every day, instead of just reacting, we have the ability to respond. Responsibility. We have like the ability to respond correctly and, with discernment. So I thought that was a really good way to, kind of.
I've never heard that.
Well, then you have,
Responsibility.
then you have the opportunity to correct.
Yeah, I mean,
To correct course, to correct action. And so there's that misnomer of sin. All in Greek, sin, the Greek word, all it means is missing the mark. And as far as there's another word, but it references, correct action.
I think especially the more modern our world gets, it seems like the more criticism, even constructive criticism and critiquing is seen as attacking or seen like that, but it's not. Without critiquing yourself, and I mean, we need to critique each other. We're in a society, and without recognizing things and things that can be fixed, there's no moving forward. If everything is okay all the time, there's no moving forward. Some stuff needs to be fixed, and you need to recognize that, or we're just, because the thing about the status quo that I realized is that when you aim for the status quo, you aim to just keep the boat going as it is, we inevitably fall even a few centimeters short of where we aim. And so the status quo is just a really slow climb. It's never really, no status quo slowly rights itself. I don't think that's ever happened in history. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to work for that, but it depends on why we're working for that, and like what our attitude is going forward. Like in the Light on the Path, it says kill out ambition, but work as those who are ambitious. So what does that really mean? Yeah. We kill out ambition for ourselves. Yeah. But we work as being ambitious for the whole.
Yeah. That's great. Don't be dead, but sleep like the dead.
Okay, so the next quote is from the Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita I love and read over and over because it has, lists some of these virtues that I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I have to read this over and over and try to put this into practice more and more. So this quote from the Bhagavad Gita says, "My devotee who is free from enmity, well disposed towards all creatures, merciful, wholly exempt from pride and selfishness, the same in pain and pleasure, patient of wrongs, contented, constantly devote, self-governed, firm in resolves, and whose mind and heart are fixed on me alone, is dear unto me. He is also my beloved, of whom mankind is not afraid, and who has no fear of man, who is free from joy, from despondency, and the dread of harm. My devotee, who is unexpecting, pure, just, impartial, devoid of fear, and who hath forsaken interest in the results of action, is dear unto me. He also is worthy of my love, who neither rejoiceth nor findeth fault, who neither lamenteth nor coveteth, and being my servant hath forsaken interest in both good and evil results. He is also my beloved servant, who is equal-minded to friend or foe, the same in honor and dishonor, in cold and heat, in pain and pleasure, and is unsolicitous about the event of things, to whom praise and blame are as one, who is of little speech, content with whatever cometh to pass, who hath no fixed habitation, and whose heart, full of devotion, is firmly fixed. But those who seek the sacred ambrosia, the religion of immortality, even as I have explained it, full of faith, intent on me above all others, and united to devotion, are my most beloved.
Yeah, that's really good.
So yeah, that one I tend to read over and over again because there are so many virtues.
Is it Krishna speaking there? Or?
Yeah, that's Krishna. So yeah, who is devoted to me means is Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, it has so many virtues that you spend a lifetime even trying to perfect, one or two of these virtues. But these are some of the virtues, like the paramitas, that lead us to the correct, discernment of what the truth is in everyday situations, and how to respond, and how to affect that future, because it's like every thought by thought affects the future. So if we're constantly focused on these virtues, trying to act in this way, then that's how we're setting up the causes for this future, karma, and changing to this more ethical life.
When two words is combined with dash, like a well dash disposed, self dash government.
Yeah.
Another they say what is that? Equal dash minded. That one is like a two, like a spiritual and material. They combine always.
Mm.
The dash always give me some attention, because in the secret
Doctrine.
yes, when Madame Blavatsky put the dash, they give me my attention, because they say it's like a positive and negative. Okay, yeah, they put it together. It's the law or the opposite. In one point, when the union, the negative and the point, they give you the third part.
Yeah.
So that one is, we have a government.
Yeah.
It's another person coming out from the self and the government. So this one give me keep my attention with that one. Equal mind.
So with us living here in Los Angeles and everybody else around the world in different places, you want to be a good person and you want to help, and you read about Blavatsky that said, no theosophist will sit there and witness suffering and let it happen. We witness immense suffering every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost to the point of like a war zone with suffering in certain areas. And I would love nothing more to be able to assuage that suffering. But like, so where is, it seems like there has to be some kind of discernment to doing good and helping people, which I've always been uncomfortable with because, you want to just do good. You want to be able to be like, listen, I'm doing good, so it shouldn't turn into a disaster. But often it can.
Yeah. Well,
And so,
the road to hell is.
it almost feels unfair that I can't just dive in and help without someone, changing my locks or having the police get called, weird things. It's kind of a bummer, but so without just intellectualizing it all the time as the brotherhood, sisterhood we are, what do we do about that other than just coming up with ideas of how to fix it and criticizing, institutions that don't fix it in our opinion? What do we do? Yeah,
well, criticizing institutions isn't going to help either, because when we talked about the elementals, when we're criticizing, we're attracting that.
And all these institutions, at least they're doing something, even as little as or whatever as it is they're doing more than I am.
Well, some of it's looking, again, like she was stating, the cause. It's looking at the cause, and that's not attracting it to yourself. I mean, there's causal reasons and for what we see in LA, and it's compounded. And so, and we each can see different historical events, individual events, that participate in that cause. And, but as far as something that one can do, because, it's so massive for one to fix, but even just, there's one woman who, I introduced myself and got her name. And so whenever I see her and she asks me for $1 or whatever, I don't always have it to give, but it's being kind to her and, hi Rose, how you doing? And sharing her with meeting, introducing her to a friend of mine so that there's a humanization, because they're often not seen. People are not seen who are homeless or whatever. And so it's an element of just acknowledging and being seen and humanizing.
Well, that's an interesting point too.
But
The elementals you're opening yourself up to by being a quote unquote good person is pretty wild. And we've been talking about these empowered elementals, and there can be someone. I've been in a position where I needed help so bad, but my vibes, for lack of a better word, elementals were horrible. I was awful and poisonous, and I had to break that down and at least be, just eventually be a humble blob for people to want to approach me and not be infected with this negativity and this poison and this hate and things like that. So yeah, it does. It's making a lot of sense, and it's a perfect transition from elemental.
But the only way to stop is don't give food to element.
Don't feed the elemental.
Don't feed.
She showed me a quote up here.
Don't feed the element. One book I read to say our thought is have a more powerful and go so quickly the light. So if we think about our thought is more quickly than the light, we have a more powerful in the thing. Because we think and then we materialize. Yes. So we have to be very careful what we're thinking about. If we think, everything is bad, don't go outside. Everything will be bad. So it depends our self-government.
Government, yeah. And our
That's
attitude.
it. Very, very powerful and very interesting. That's why they say our principle, we have to learn what is it, how they work inside to us. to understand outside.
Well, even in the voice of the silence, it also instructs us as students to, when we're on this path, and they call it oftentimes path of woe, you know, go forth with a cheerful heart. You know, because everyone's suffering. So many people are suffering. So one thing we can do is go forth with a cheerful heart, no matter what we're going through, what, you know, we just, not to be Pollyanna-ish, but not to be negative as well. And yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, historically, like what, you know, we have very few instances. We have more instances of warring factions, of disharmony, and then we have a few of people trying to bring harmony or bring justice, you know. But
aren't as loud.
it's you know, one person can make a difference.
Sure.
You know, we've seen that happen. So like you said, one person can make a difference.
Yeah, when you see the difference in the elementals or vibes around some of those people, it's like if you want to experience just some beautiful elementals in the environment, Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in the like Four Corners area. It's the biggest no-kill animal sanctuary in the world, and it is just, I mean, they have Buddha must be floating right above that place, because it's just so magical. Everybody's so happy, and always I am so happy. It's just something like that. And I think also from what you're saying, we've all known that person who's able to not as like forcefully being positive, but someone who is just joyous all the time, especially when things get tough or hard, and how attractive those people are when the hard times come. Right. Like that person that's just able to laugh at the void, just laugh back regardless, you know, and those people are so attractive. The person that's just wallowing in it, you're just like, I know, things are horrible. We don't need that's not that attractive.
Well, yeah, we need to, you know, like the saying is not be part of the problem, but be part of the solution.
I just want to there was just one day not long ago to where a friend and I were taking care of business and going into some of the federal buildings for business that we had to take care of, or she had to take care of, and I was going as a witness. But that particular, and then we went out to lunch, but that particular day, it was just really interesting because everybody we came in contact with and who came in contact with us, there was just kindness exuded, you know, it was just kindness. And then it was someone gave, you know, when they were leaving the parking lot, you know, it was, here's my day pass. I only spent here 20 minutes, you know, and so my friend didn't have to spend $10 to park to go in the federal building. And then when we went out to eat and we came back, somebody was waiting to get to the meter. We had time, we stopped, and it was just like, hey, there's time left in this meter back here. And he was like, God, you guys are amazing. But it was like, just like the simple passing forward of little kind acts, you know, that just made everybody's life that day happy.
That reminds me of
you know, it was just like sharing gifts, you know.
You ever been caught in one of those pay it forward drive-throughs? Did that ever happen to you? Where you get up to get your food and they tell you the person in front of you paid for your stuff. And so then you don't want to be the jerk, so you pay for the person behind you. And then there's been like articles and stuff that it's lasted for hundreds of people before someone finally breaks down and just takes a free meal. But it's a really good thing. You kind of do feel like, oh, I don't want to be the weird one left out, but who cares what the motivation is? It's good.
Yeah. And there was just one, a good friend of mine, and he knew Einstein. He played music with Einstein. But one day he was sharing with me how this woman thought he was homeless when he was walking downtown LA, and she stopped the car and wanted to give him money. And he took it. And I go, why did you take it? You didn't need it. And I went through this whole thing of, why would you do that? And he goes, what? And disappoint her? Yeah. Like, I'm going to say no, and then she's going to be upset because she wanted to give it to me. He goes, why couldn't I take it? And he goes, so I took it. He goes, then I went to my favorite place that I always go to lunch. And he goes, and the waiter got a wonderful tip,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
But that's so important. Being gracious.
Being able to take
Being gracious
when someone
about
wants to
this
give.
is so important. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm giving you a gift also so I feel good. Like there is a little bit of selfishness here.
Or just to be kind.
And the more excited or gracious someone is, all the better. Everybody's happy. You're totally
To be
right.
kind, you know,
Yes,
it's just
yeah.
to be kind. It's not even selfish.
I think to an extent too, we live in a society too where everybody is very hesitant or afraid to compliment other people and strangers, but even people we know, we don't compliment.
I do.
And that's the thing, if someone is bold enough to compliment you, thank you, that's amazing. Like, even if I don't agree with what they are complimenting, heck yeah, for making the effort, like.
One movie I like to see is Mulan. Mulan,
Mulan, the Disney,
the Disney.
Oh,
Kung Fu one.
No, there is the fight, but it's a girl. It's a girl.
I've never seen the movie, I saw the cartoon.
Go to the war. She transferred to the man. Okay, and then in the end, the king they give you one a little tip. They say, "Oh, Mulan, don't worry if you are a woman. One race, one piece of race made the difference." That's who we are right now,
Sure.
trying to make, that is it's a little thing. We can make the change. We have the power. That's why they say KSHANTI. Yeah, that's in the word.
There's always
That's in the word.
there's
That
always
word is very powerful.
a
if you
single
understand.
snowflake that can cause an avalanche to take out half a mountain. The tiniest little thing eventually can be the one that breaks the camel's back, as they say, yeah.
Yeah, but the KSHANTI is the power one, because the Theosophy, they give you one, talking about gift. They give a gift to say, we are the microcosmos of the copy of the macroscope. So how we can ask to us about outside if we have the power for everything? We are potential. We need to put it in actual actualization.
Sure.
Thank you for yeah, that is the only thing. We are the potential, everything, but need to transfer. We need to do it.
I think that's why I think there's something beyond the genetics of us thinking baby things are so cute. I think there might be a spiritual component where we see they're just pure raw potential.
Yeah.
I think just that beautiful raw potential is something that I like, because this is even the little puppy. It's just like, wow, you got the whole, what are you gonna be, you know?
Well, yeah, and there's something, to be said about, a human baby being born and being still very pure, coming from the purification, state, and not gaining all the society, like learning all the societal things that we learn along the way to create, the veils.
Fear that because they're free of that fear even. And
Right.
it's just like all that stuff that eventually makes us neurotic, it wasn't there when we were a little bit.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, let's read. The next one. So it's talking about, like, in Theosophy, teaching about these ethics being the same core of all religions, devoid of what religious, religions today have like kind of changed things. The core of all religions, it says, in ethics, all these religions are the same, and no new ethic is given by any. Jesus was the same as his predecessor Buddha, and both taught the law of love and forgiveness. A consideration of the religions of the past and today from a theosophical standpoint will support and confirm ethics. We therefore cannot introduce a new code, but we strive by looking into all religions to find a firm basis, not due to fear, favor, or injustice, for the ethics common to all. This is what Theosophy is for and what it will do. It is the reformer of religion, the unifier of diverse systems, the restorer of justice to our theory of the universe. It is our past, present, and our future. It is our life, our death, and our immortality. So there, yeah, it's talking about Theosophy, you know, through all the teachings that Blavatsky presents, like especially in the Secret Doctrine, about all the religions, like what their origin and how they're based on the common ethics of this, of oneness, universal brotherhood, basically.
I wonder, like in human history, especially Western religious history, is it ever okay for one to suspend their ethics? And what I mean is, when you look at a lot of the prophets of Western scriptures and even important figures in those books, most of them would be multiple felons today, in pretty serious trouble because of a lot of the actions they take. And I wonder, is there something about being like in a position of extreme power and influence where it's okay, or even that, or even better, to suspend our ethics? It doesn't sound right to me, but it seems like a lot of the great figures of the past, mythical or not, weren't being very ethical a lot of the time.
Like what? Like
Yeah, what are you referring to?
I mean, like, a lot of, I don't want to pick on specific, I mean, like David. I mean, there was his later actions of, you know, taking his friend's wife and sending his friend to the front line so he could die, so he could have his wife. That was extremely unethical, but kind of needed in the lineage of the Bible. Without, if he didn't do that, the lineage to what they say Christ is wouldn't have existed. So this good lineage came out of this horrible decision.
Well, yeah, but is that like a parable, more of a parable?
I mean, most people think that some kind of David was real, but yeah, they could all be parables. Who knows?
Yeah, that I don't know so much about that,
Even
but
like
it seems
Lot, who you know lets his wife die, and then you know tries to sell his.
I mean, because even
There's
like,
a lot of
you know, in the
bad.
Bible, sacrificing the son or something, but those are all like more parable to me, I think, you know, but
Yeah.
I think especially when you're in power, no, the idea is to rule with these spiritual ethics, you know, all like the ancient, you know, in the ancient, like Chinese or, you know, Asian rulers, you know, they did rule with these ethics.
Yeah, the philosopher king is the ideal, sure, yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, but, you know, as time goes on, then that breaks down. And so, yeah.
We haven't had a philosopher king in quite a while.
And I think, well, and I think what is important is, you know, within, I'm just going to say, the traditional Jewish community, you know, their Bible is their Bible. It's not an Old Testament, and they take offense to, you know, Old Testament. I mean, to Old Testament. And so, but when you look at how the Old Testament was put together and what was accepted, not accepted, same thing with the New Testament, quote, you know, the Christian Bible, what was, you know, Jesus's, the Gospels, what he taught was completely different from Paul, what Paul taught. And so there's an element of just, you know, discernment in regards to how some of these texts were put together. And then the other item is that I try to stay away from West versus East,
Sure.
because West came about in regards to Orientalism. And at the time of Jesus, you know, his life, he grew up in an area of Hellenism.
Yeah.
It was Hellenistic.
Yeah.
It wasn't Jewish.
No,
It was a little small community of traditional, you know, Jewish community, but he grew up in the realm of philosophy, Hellenism, and you can look at some of the Gospels, and the Gospels copy Homer. And so, in the book of Mark, it even states the resurrection, the manuscript for the resurrection is questionable. But when you look at the book of Mark, it's the perfect tragedy, you know, when you follow Aristotle's book of Poetics. So, I mean, I don't know, and to answer, I'm not like answering your question, but I think that there's discernment that's needed in regards to what these texts are, you know, and how they got included in, say, quote, one book, and then what was eliminated. So, like the book of Job is very highly spiritual.
Well, I mean,
And so,
Song of Solomon, there's, a lot of stories that come into it, but exactly.
and there's some very horrific acts within, quote, the Old Testament,
When
within
you
the,
look at the Gnostic books that are all put under the library of the word Gnostic now, you definitely see why they were cut out in the different councils, and then at the end in Nicaea, because it was they were, because of their faith, they were a lot harder for the state to handle. The state like this kind of Christianity, because they can work with it politically. Gnosis and these people that are just pious monks walking around not owning anything, those are no good for a state, you know, so you can't make them soldiers. And so that's what you find out. A lot of good stuff is gone for a reason. It's pretty clear.
I think the discussion, if I can interject here,
Yeah, go ahead.
a big difference between religion and its teachings and ethics. There's all religions have "thou shalt not kill" in their basic code, yet
With caveats.
all wars are kind of justified by religion. And so I think there's an important thing to look at here, is that ethics and religious teachings and countries' morals and how they base their regular civilization laws around all change. And it changes by, as you know, as Nastasha was saying, who's collecting the writings, who's interpreting them. You know, the resurrection, a lot of people interpret that as an actual event that's going to happen or that did happen. And if you know, there's certain people that look at resurrection as just a different name for reincarnation. So if wherever you're reading what's left of the Christian Bible, and you use that as an interpretation, it gives a completely different understanding of what they're talking about. And so I think that, you know, it's a key point to keep in mind, is that as text gets translated, as people, I mean, we're witnessing it in our own schools right now, as to what is acceptable and what is not acceptable to teach. And as soon as you change the teaching, you change the trajectory of society.
yeah,
Any country that decided to withdraw books, kill people who were the educated, burn books, limit who could read books, take certain books out of public circulation and only allow them for certain people. Anytime that's happened, you know, the laws change, and what is acceptable in the society changes, and that changes the direction. You know, it could change, like we're looking at in history for the Dark Ages. Look how long things were suppressed and what the religious interpretation was of what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah, like First time I read the Bible, I was a kid. I remember the first thing that made me be like, yeah, this is probably like symbols and similes, because I think it's John, one of the Gospels. I'm pretty sure it's John. Not only says Jesus came back to life, it says tens of thousands of the dead in Jerusalem also rose. And I remember even as a kid, I was like, well, that probably would have made it in history. Like, I think someone would have documented that if there was tens of thousands of people rising from the grave. And I was like 13. I remember being like, so that probably is a story that means something, right? And that was the very first one. But I mean, there's still die-hard gospel people that are like, no, it's literal. We just missed it somehow. I don't know. But yeah, it is there, and there's that discernment like Nastasia's talking about. It's all discernment.
Anders.
Oh, Anders?
Yes, in the example that Colin gave, when society or the people who leads the society is restricting what is true and not true. I mean, the opposite was happening when Ammonius Saccas, this is the example that HPB was looking at, and the name Theosophy was also mentioned. There were many sects, and he was taking out, and just as Colin was making an example too, that you see the same truth in what they are trying to bring out, and you join people around different sects or religions, and make them joined in the same truth instead of doing the opposite, which was happening at that time, and it happens to humanity at some events in time as well.
Thanks, Anders.
And also in this paragraph, they give me one attention to say, this is what Theosophy is for and what will be too. It is the reform. That's what reformer is the key to understand, because they say reformer of religion, the unfair or diverse system, the restorer of justice, our theory of the universe. That's it. That's it. All the people they come in is not to say you have to do this one. No, they give you like the master. The master, they don't say you have to do this one. They give you sign. They give you the explanation. They give you too many paths. Too many paths. It depends on our vibration, our own knowledge, our sensitive. We have to be sensitive to be involved in everything, because you're talking about David, they went to kill the husband to one part of the we read about today about Elena de Troya. Mm-hmm. Elena de Troya is only symbolism. Sure. So sometimes we say, okay, this one they say in our mind. Remember when we start today, we read, and the mind, they give you the form. But because we are on the mana, they say one word, they say we are mana rupa, form. We form the form is depending how is my interpretation. Mm-hmm. So the Bible is, I think that is my own knowledge. A little bit. It's very symbolist, because when I now read the Bible with the key with Madame Blavatsky, is another part.
Very different Bible.
Because for example, they say about when this was Adam and Eva, they call. I don't know how they call one place geographic place. Okay, they say about 4 rivers. Okay, they say about forgiveness. Everybody was looking in the map, go to some place to look at that one. But they explain it's not any, you couldn't find
Sure.
it in the map. It's inside to us. So that's why we are a little, I think so, but when somebody explained the Bible, they say, no, this one is the true. Adam and Eve was two persons, that's it, no matter what. And I say, they say about Cain and Abel. So the other people from when they coming, it was only two persons. I said, what is another one? Why they have a more family there? So it's on for right now. I feeling like it's very symbolist.
Sure.
The Genesis is very mysticism.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, too many symbols, too many key. But when we read the Madame Blavatsky, so the view is more panoramic view. And before was like the horse, the horse they come in something in the
Blinders.
yes, they can see on this one. But now we have a panoramic.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and it can be seen without, I mean, it can also, it's also seen without Madame Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky has brought things forward that have been in our universe. So she brought things forward that has been there. There's always been Theosophy, always. But then there's the Theosophical movement. So there's the lineage of truth. Like when you look at Confucius, then you look at Plato and Hellenism, the similarities are amazing. And so, but, there's problems with translations. Okay, Plato uses the word self, autos. Nobody translates it. So there's also the problem with the Bible that people, translations, but also commentary. And the commentary often takes up more space on the page than the actual text. So people go to the commentary versus the text itself. And so anyway, I'm not going to say anything more, but it's if I think in reading it for oneself, one sees things. If one reads well and they're not hearing and listening to a pastor telling them how to interpret it, or well, yeah, I mean, we have the ability to read and to understand and to see and to question. Yeah.
She starts saying, on that it's pretty hard to study Theosophy without intuitive reading. It's just
right. How to read a sentence. Most people don't read a sentence well.
They say that they put they tie the flower. They say they put it together. They put together. The flower, they always has to be, but they put it together. So they give you the chop a little more easier than before without all the book. We have it here. I think so.
I think it's important to keep in mind that it's all these texts and the different religions we study, the different philosophies we study, the various articles from HPB are all things to help our lower mind realize that we have a direct connection to these ethics and truths. And then the next step is to try and be able to go internally in our consciousness to raise to a level that we're experiencing it not just as a learning, but as a direct experience. And that's the difference between an adept or a pretty good meditator that can reach a level of consciousness that we're all on. We can study the doctrines of all the different different philosophies and religions to try and realize their similarities, but the true experience is being able to experience it as that state of consciousness.
It's a state of mind.
Makes
and
a statement, you know, there's a level of mind that we're not learning. We have direct cognition.
Correct.
And that's what probably what you study through Plato. He's talking about those experiences and how to get there. And I think that's really a key thing to try and keep in mind, is that if there is universal ethics, and then that means that everyone has a connection to that. And
Right.
I think that's the important thing to try and experience, because then we're acting on a plane of cause that is not false. And then the next step is to be able to bring that back as a memory and base our actions on that. By following the golden rule, or the pillars of Islam, or the Buddhist tenets, is a way to get ourselves familiar with it. The pyramids, as Kelly presented, but all those are examples of how to try and make it an application. But the reality is always there for us to experience it, but it's got to be as a conscious level of spiritual attunement to that plane. That we're all on that plane. We just don't know how to actualize it and experience it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thanks, Colin.
That was good. Well, yeah, and that kind of goes directly to this last quote that I'll finish up with tonight. So the last quote says, "So then we insist that universal brotherhood is a fact in nature. It is a fact for the lowest part of nature, for the animal kingdom, for the vegetable kingdom, and the mineral kingdom. We are all atoms obeying the law together. Our denying it does not disprove it. It simply puts off the day of reward and keeps us miserable, poor, and selfish. Why, just think of it. If all in Chicago in the United States would act as Jesus has said, as Buddha has said, as Confucius has said, as all the great ethical teachers of the world have said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Would there be any necessity for legal measures and policemen with clubs in the parks as you had them the other day? No, I think there would be no necessity. And that is what one of this great brotherhood has said. He said all the troubles of the world would disappear in a moment if men would only do 1/4 of what they could and what they ought. It is not God who is to damn you to death, to misery, it is yourself. And the Theosophical Society desires above all things, not that you should understand spiritualism, not that wonderful occult work should be performed, but to understand the constitution of matter and of life as they are, which we can never understand by practicing right, which we can never understand but by practicing right ethics. Live with each other as brothers, for the misery and the trouble of the world are of more importance than all the scientific progress that may be imagined. I conclude by calling upon you, by all that humanity holds dear, to remember what I say, and whether Christians, atheists, Jews, pagans, heathen, or theosophists, try to practice universal brotherhood, which is the universal duty of all men."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That one line, for the misery and the trouble of the world are more important. Of course it is. Yeah. It's just like the idea of like letting science go unhindered and being as progressive as possible. When all these people are, what's like science for? We're suffer.
It's like this whole push to go to Mars, to to create a livable, community on Mars. Well, what about
No.
helping the Earth and creating a livable community on Earth?
How do we avoid poverty on Mars in the future if we can't even figure that out? Like, I mean, Star Trek made it pretty clear. Like, all that's, and it's Star Trek, whatever, but in their version of history, like, racism had to be conquered, hunger had to be conquered, all these things had to be conquered in order for them to be a space-faring culture.
Yeah.
And so, that was
Thank you.
wonderful. Anything else to add, guys, online? Okie doke. Next week, we're just going back to history.
So,
Okay, yeah, next few classes, we'll be back to the history. If you guys want to read up on the that Theosophy movement, feel free. I'll send the link again. But yeah.
But then,
Okay, I'll make sure I have your.
thank you, everyone, for your
Thank you.
participation.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you. Night. Thank you.
Oh.
look at my email, please.